I'm originally from Japan. I grew up in the suburb of Tokyo. And I moved to Chicago about in 1992. And I've been living in Chicago area since then. I started making this group of work in 2015, about 9 years ago. Long time ago, I started making work with clay, and I was making pottery for a long time, and I was believing that I would be a potter, like a studio potter, and I thought that's going to be my job, but it shifted. But my husband and I was running production pottery business together for a number of years, and but we reached a point where it's just too physically demanding, and we should change our life. And that's when I decided to apply for graduate school, and then I stopped making pottery, and I completely, changed my direction and started making sculptures. Our production pottery was made of porcelain, and I have been a big fan of porcelain for a long time, and but again, I did not want to continue making tablewares, and also porcelain is a beautiful material, but it's extremely difficult to work with. Especially the porcelain that I'm working with is not plastic at all. The best way to form the clay is to mix the clay into liquid form, which is called the casting slip, and do a casting with that liquid form of clay. And I've been searching ways to make a sculpture with porcelain for a long time, and I just started thinking about, why don't I make porcelain building blocks and build structure and make a sculpture. And that's how I started this series of work about 9 years ago. And also, so after we quit making production pottery, my husband went to work for his family business, but after the several years, they decided to sell the business. So he left the job. They sold the business, so he couldn't work anymore. So he's all of a sudden said, I'm going to be a farmer. And he bought a land in Indiana, and he started living and working there. And I said the farmer, but not as a farmer who grows corns and grains. But what he was interested in doing was, the land he bought is a retired farm land, and there's a huge forest. Is part of the land, and he wanted to do some reforesting. It's more than farming of trees was what he was wanting to do, and also re-establish a prairie, native prairie with native plants, and that's what he has been doing. And I still live in Evanston, which is north of Chicago. It's about 12 miles from Chicago, center of Chicago. And I go visit him almost every weekend. Again, I'm from suburb of Tokyo, and my parents are not very outdoorsy people at all, and I did not grow up not having, much interaction with big nature. Never went to camping as I was growing up, and this Indiana life that I've been experiencing since 10 years ago was a completely new territory for me, and it took me a long time actually to get comfortable being in Indiana. But I came a long way, and I learned so much about nature, learned so much about trees, so much about plants, and now I want to be there. I really enjoy being there, and and then I think that life really gave me a new perspective on nature and materials, and that really influencing the work that I've been doing. Can I invite you guys over to this glass case, and I want to talk about these pieces that I made specifically for this exhibition. And so I would say these works are pretty site-specific and exhibition-specific. A year and a half ago, I received an invitation to this show from Brian, and I did a little research, and I read about this Kendoro marble buildings and the history of marble industry in Knoxville, and it was really an eye-opening discovery for me. And marble is something that I was really interested in working with for a long time. It's just one of the geological materials, beautiful materials that I was always thinking about working someday, and this is such an amazing opportunity for me. And I contacted Tennessee Marble Company, and I asked them to send me a few samples. I actually specifically asked for 12 by 12 inch tiles and some crumbles of marbles. And they kindly shipped all those materials that I requested, and they're so kind that they say it's on them. And I was willing to pay, but they're really kind and shipped me wonderful materials to work with. So I have to write to them now and invite them to the show to see these works, and I'm going to do that. And I'm very interested in ceramics glazes, and I've been teaching glaze chemistry class at School of the Art Institute of Chicago since 2017, so it's been 7 years. And I learned that Chinese potters 1,000 years ago, they used to source calcium oxide as an important flux material in the ceramics glazes from limestone, wood ash, chalk, and marble. And so I knew that I can use marble to make ceramics glazes. And so I first calcined small pieces of marble to a red heat in the kiln. Calcine means to fire once to a red heat. And the carbon goes away, chemically combined water dribbles off. And after the firing, the marble becomes like a dust. It becomes very, very soft. And I used a hammer, and I just crushed it as fine as I can. And I started developing ceramics glaze with marble dust. And this piece has the glaze that I developed with the Tennessee pink marble. Yeah, this glaze has about 30%. 30% of this glaze is Tennessee pink marble. And so just to quickly explain what the flux does in a ceramics glaze is the ceramics glaze component. There are 3 components: silica as a glass former, and the flux as a melter, and clay as a stabilizer. And every ceramics glaze have to have 3 components. And why do you need flux in the glazes is to lower the melting point of silica. Silica's melting point is over 3,000 Fahrenheit, and it needs a flux help to lower the melting point of silica. And this glaze was fired to about 2,270 Fahrenheit. So I, made test after test, small test, and finally reached the result that I liked, I'm happy with. And I decided to apply that glaze on stoneware slab on the tile. And so this piece is a 12 by 12 Tennessee pink marble that a Tennessee Marble Company shipped to me. The piece on the top is a 3/4 inch solid glass, and white rectangular block is porcelain. And it's hollow inside, there's nothing inside. And green piece is 100% wool felt. And pink piece, octagonal cone piece, is a 3D printed plastic. But the pink color is acrylic spray. And the little green line that painted on this small piece of marble is also acrylic paint. And the design on the tile was laser engraved by a laser cutter. I drew that design in Illustrator and send the information to laser cutter machine, and the machine laser etched those lines. I was originally making, had a plan to make those two pieces together and put it in this glass case, but then I thought I would probably need one more, and I came up with this small piece. It came as a last piece, but I'm quite happy with how it turned out. So these two small marble slabs are also the pieces that Tennessee Marble Company sent to me. I have been working with this shape. This beige piece is a ceramics cast piece, but it's not porcelain, it's a stoneware. So stoneware is called a stoneware because when it's fired to proper temperature, the clay becomes so strong like a stone, so it's called a stoneware. And the shape was basically abstraction of flower. I've been thinking about how to make natural or botanical or floral object in more abstracted forms and geometric forms. And this is just a quarter different length of quarter circle inside and outside, revolve 360 degrees to make this shape. And it's like a floral motif for me. And someone gifted me this piece of wood. It's ebony. It's native to Indonesia or Sri Lanka. It is a wood, it's a very dense wood, and it's heavy. It's considered a rare wood, and many small art and craft objects are made with this beautiful wood in those countries, and this wood is often used for musical instrument as well. Again, this wood is so dense and heavy, and when you put it in the water, it sinks down, it doesn't float. And then this organic shape white piece behind this floral piece is porcelain. When I was looking at this piece, I was thinking that almost like everything looks so similar, but everything is different. But sometimes when I look at this piece, I think everything is so different, but they are very similar at the same time. So that kind of thinking, is that materiality that I'm interested in working with always. When things look so different, but there's always a connection and similarity. And when sometimes some things looks very similar, but they can be very different. Everything can be very different. I'm ready to take questions now, if you guys have anything.
Yeah, absolutely. Highlighting my question from earlier prior to the talk, how do you kind of approach selecting the different materials, and what's your thought process in the ones that you choose to combine together?
There's usually materials. always search and try to find the materials rather than I designed this and I need to, I'm gonna shape that in some material and to make it into my work. Rather, I'm always looking for material to work with, and that's going to be always the focal point of that work or starting point of the work. And then, yeah, like for example, there's always some focal point again. Like when I was making this piece, the focal point was this wood sheet. I source almost all the wood, especially walnut pieces, from my friend's furniture workshop. They make high-end furniture for hotels and public spaces, and they make furniture with walnut, and just a slight flaw or crack, they can't use them anymore. So, they just throw them in a scrap box, and then they kindly allow me to come and pick whatever I want. And so, it just vaguely, like, I find a piece that I'm interested in, and then, sometimes that piece sits in my studio for years, for months, until the ideas come to me. Does that make sense to you?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
It's my turn.
Yeah, sure.
No, I'm just wondering, do you find like your process is a form of investigation for you, or
Definitely, yes.
is it you finding? Like I heard you say that it's you finding out what the material wants, but do you feel like in a way that you're placing your voice in the material, or you're finding yourself seeking what the material wants to say?
I think I'm in dialogue with my, the materials, and what I want to do is important, but it's important to honor the materials as well. So there's always kind of both ways,
Yeah. Do you feel like you hone in on the honoring more? Because you talked about the walnut ink. I guess walnut ink. You talked about the walnut wood, and you being able to go and scavenge through your friends' materials. Do you feel like that helps like influence the work as far as like you taking it from someone that you know, like the history behind, knowing it was being made for furniture, and you being able to go and reconstruct it in a different way?
I think that part is more like, it's like a chance. It's the chance that, or it's the, that I find that piece is sort of like, it's too, it might sound too exaggerated, but it's like a fate,
That's okay, me too.
So I cherish that, and well, thanks for being here, thanks for showing up for me. Yeah.
Do you feel like it's a way of you bringing life back to the piece that people, like we often discard things more, but it's not useful, but we're able to, like, just, I guess, recharge.
Definitely, yeah.
Recharge the pieces.
Yeah. Well, like, giving a different life to that material, I guess, object. Yeah.
I love that.
Thank you. Yeah. Any other questions?
I'm interested in, of course, these immediately conjure the image of a tree, but then also kind of conjure the image of something that is very built, and it's very forthcoming with the fact that it's built, with sort of its like geometric nature, and the contrast between built and organic. My question is, does that kind of allude to your thinking moving from a more urbanized environment into a more sort of nature-driven environment? And then it's also interesting, this idea of rebuilding almost, because it's taken from a tree, but then you're taking it and almost reconstructing it, but in a way that's blatantly sort of feeling urban or geometric. Are those things that you're thinking about?
Definitely, yeah. Yeah, it's funny that I'm making a tree shape with wood, and yeah, but then, you know, once the wood is cut with, you know, and then becomes rectangular and having this straight edge and combined together, it becomes this different structures, and then it becomes more so built. And yeah, and again, I think I like that contrast and also the confusion at the same time that that's showing there.
Are these porcelain blocks
Yes.
in the back here?
Yes, yes.
How do you think, or well, how does the porcelain kind of tie into that conversation of like juxtaposing like the natural essence of the wood with like the very like structured, blocky like kind of texture of it?
So my porcelain blocks edges are all chamfered, and sort of like mimicking like a children's wood block toys. So, you know, it's kind of like, it looks like a building toy, but it's in porcelain. So, you know, and it's white and it's porcelain. It's different from the wood, and then, you know, you would assume to like see the building blocks shape in wood, but it's in porcelain. So yeah, again, like that kind of the question is what I want to have in my work. Like if it was everything was wood, you wouldn't probably ask this question, right? why is it porcelain? And people often ask me like, why porcelain? And I think I really appreciate that question, and that also makes me think that porcelain is still not very accepted sculptural material. You know, people expect to see porcelain on the table, not in the sculpture. Yeah. So, I think that's why I continue to work with porcelain in a kind of unconventional way.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for that.
Do you feel like finding these, investigating these objects is a form of play for you?
Yes, definitely. Yes.
I can see that in a way, especially with like the stacking of materials and then juxtaposing like the glass between the marble and then having the porcelain on top. I guess my question is what's the motivation behind the play?
Motivation behind the play.
Or being getting inspired to investigate, like playing through investigation?
You know, I guess being playful and humorous. Humor are not exactly the same thing, but you know, I think I tend to be too serious about many things, but then I think part of me really wanted to be, you know, a lot more lighthearted and then just enjoy making work. But also, being playful, like making playful work is also a very serious activity too. And,
Do you feel like you've had to focus harder on, like, if you're like, oh, I'm just gonna enjoy this, do you feel like it's like, okay, I'm enjoying this, but what's the purpose? Like, why am I doing this? Is this actually the act that I need to be doing right now? It's just the things I question myself with when I'm creating work. So I'm just like, does anyone else like feel the same? I guess it's the question.
like, at what stage do you always ask the question?
Halfway through the work.
Like, do you asking
I'll
yourself?
I'll start asking myself, I'll start a grant, I'm like, is this really where I was going with this? And it becomes like a question of like, maybe it just needs to be like an investigation of what this material means.
I mean, there's so many failures in my work, in my studio. You know, like, sometimes, or most of the time, that I work without having a specific goal. So there's so many failures, like you said, I'm just really investigating and experimenting constantly to see what happens, to see unexpected, you know, and
Do you feel like that drives you though?
what?
Do you feel like that drives you? Is the investigation of like, I really want to see where this is going and have your failures be like your influence?
Yeah, but then failure is not failure because sometimes I go back and work on it with a totally different perspective and more older myself, you know, like just time passed and then have a different perspective, have a different thinking, and then work on it and finally finish it, and then, so, I shouldn't say failure, but it's just, my studio practice is very organically moving. It's not just, I have this idea and realize it, execute it, and done, you know, so, and that's just all part of investigation and experimentation. And now I work more intuitively. It's okay, I feel good about working more intuitively because I'm much older now. I can trust myself just a little bit more. I don't know if I answered your question.
No, thank you. I just was in the mindset of like getting out of the studio and how other people do their work and how it's like, at what point does it become intuitive for you and you being okay with swapping from one piece and being okay with going back to that piece?
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah. Thanks for the question.
It's such a treat to hear you talk about your work. Followed it for years, and it's really nice to hear firsthand from you. And I'll do one final question, which is, could you share about the difference between color as integral and color as a surface treatment, and how those combine in your assemblage work?
If I choose, if I have to choose a color for the object or component in the work, I definitely find a color that responds to the color already that's in there. But color is also comes to me very intuitively, but also the combination of colors. I get inspiration from fashion, or it's just images from Instagram, or just magazine, or I love colors, and I want to use them very well. But it usually comes very intuitively which color to use, and but again, I make mistakes, and then I also, for the color choices, I use Photoshop a lot, actually. So I for example, take a picture of this piece, and then I give different colors to that piece, and then finally decide which colors to use. Yeah, I actually use Photoshop a lot.
That's nice.
Yeah.
Well, thank you.
Okay, thank you so much.